wasn't sure there was going to be a sparring match agreement that will spar for a while. I wasn't sure. I was honest about it. That's why I said it's going to go rounds. I wasn't sure if there was an understanding that, we'll play a little bit, then we'll get a little more, whatever. So that was part of it.
Jake has had double jaw surgery, 4 plates, 8 screws in his. Everybody is just kind of breezing past that like it's no big deal. But I'm looking further into this because that's no easy surgery. And I'm starting to ask the question, is this the beginning of the end of Jake Paul's boxing career?
As his brother, I was just shocked. I'm in the hospital with the guy, and he's like, yo, can you make this TikTok? Can you film this for me? He's like laughing and having a good time.
For the agenda against Anthony Joshua, because it feels to me like that fight, I before the fight, I was refusing to accept the principle that this fight could be scripted.
The boxing world has exploded with controversy after calls emerged claiming Anthony Joshua should be arrested for the damage inflicted on Jake Paul. Critics argue the fight was a dangerous mismatch, as Paul reportedly suffered serious injuries, including jaw fractures requiring surgery and metal screws. Experts slammed Joshua's overwhelming power and aggression, saying it crossed safety limits. Fans and professionals alike were left stunned, reigniting heated debates over fighter safety and responsible matchmaking in major boxing events.
Away from the power, you could call it running, and you'll be right. You can also say it's smart for a guy of Jake's size and understanding that AJ is a fucking monster. It's also smart to fight that way. It's not the most aesthetically pleasing. It was not.
Analysts Brian Campbell and Shaka Majri delivered an in-depth breakdown of Jake Paul's recent bout against Anthony Joshua, examining both tactical choices and the physical punishment Paul endured. They emphasize how Joshua's elite power proved decisive, landing heavy shots that caused visible damage and reportedly led to Jake needing jaw surgery. To survive, Paul leaned heavily on movement, footwork, and evasive tactics, constantly circling the ring to avoid being cornered on the ropes. While this approach lacked sustained offense, it helped him last longer than many expected against such a dangerous heavyweight. Campbell and Majri noted that Paul's focus on mobility and ring awareness allowed him to manage his stamina and limit some damage. However, Joshua's size, strength, and pressure still broke through. The analysts stressed that the fight highlighted the value of defensive planning, while also exposing the serious risks involved when fighters compete in high-stakes matchups with clear physical mismatches.
Could this be the end for him in terms of what he's doing in the boxing ring?
Listen, so long as people will tune in and so long as Jake Paul is paid by Netflix or any broadcaster to air his fights, we're going to see this continue. And Jake Paul knows his business model, right? Now, this deviated, this AJ fight, which came together kind of last minute after the Tank Davis fight fell apart. But we know Jake Paul's MO here. It's find the most popular guy with the most physical disadvantages for me to fight. And Jake Paul has the benefit that he's turned himself into a villain, or in the pro wrestling circles, a heel. People tune in to watch. We did not tune into this fight to see competitive boxing. Most of us tuned in because we thought, here's Anthony Joshua. Here's a 2-time unified heavyweight champion, a guy who physically just overwhelms Jake Paul. And we're finally going to get what Tyron Woodley and Anderson Silva, Nate Diaz, were not physically fit, whether it be through their size, experience, or age, to do, and that is knock out Jake Paul. And so, because I don't really feel like we got that satisfying comeuppance that a lot of people have been waiting for, it kind of gives Jake Paul a little bit of mystique, I'd almost say, to still try and string this along. Now, I don't know in terms, he says he wants to be cruiserweight champion. I'm not quite sure what the competitive road there is, because let's make no mistake, the reason this fight lasted as long as it did is because Jake Paul focused exclusively on being elusive. He did his best, and kudos to him, right? He did a great job of not getting cornered. He was always on the gas until the gas sort of fell out from underneath him. And so I don't quite know, short of leveraging his popularity, how he's going to get to that title shot if he's not actually going to fight, like really fight, an elite boxer. But if he's looking to make money, there's the KSI fight out there, there's the Tommy Fury rematch. There is ways for Jake Paul to...
Former UFC champion Michael Bisping offered a blunt reaction to Jake Paul's devastating loss against Anthony Joshua, calling a clear masterclass in elite professional boxing. Bisping stressed just how outmatched Paul appeared, praising Joshua's sharp precision, timing, and raw power. He noted that AJ's crisp combinations and brutal uppercuts constantly closed the distance, leaving Paul with little space to escape or reset. According to Bisping, the repeated punishment and reported broken jaw were inevitable results of stepping in with a far bigger, stronger, and vastly more experienced opponent. He explained that this was a level of competition Paul had never truly faced before. Bisping added that confidence, bravado, and promotional hype cannot replace years of elite training and ring IQ. Although Paul showed toughness by surviving multiple rounds, Joshua's dominance exposed a clear divide between world-class heavyweight fighters and celebrity crossover boxers, serving as a harsh lesson in respect, preparation, and true skill.
My humble opinion, because I'm a big Anthony Joshua fan. Of course, I've been a supporter for the longest time. A rather lackluster, unmotivated Anthony Joshua that didn't look like he was being particularly nasty, right? A lot of the time he was out of range, and okay, it's hard to land a shot on someone that's backing up and moving away the whole time. And there was a lot of times where he had him in the corner and he could have thrown a shot, and sometimes he was telegraphing his shots, and anytime he did go in to throw a punch, as I said before, Jake Paul would shoot in and turn it into a wrestling match. And even when he wasn't shooting in, he was clinching a lot. This is boxing, it's not MMA, as we know. The referee should have done a much better job of getting in there and separating them much faster. As I say, it was the sixth round. I think it was the fourth round he got dropped twice. In the fifth round he got through it. In the sixth round, caught him with the jab, a glancing right hook, he goes down, and that was that. That was all she wrote, right? I did a live. There was about 9,000 people watching at one point. Nobody was particularly enjoying the matchup. Listen, okay? I respect both men. I respect anyone really that steps into the ring, okay? And certainly going up against Anthony Joshua, that was a tall task, okay? You know, metaphorically and figuratively, right? It was a tall task. It was a big job. It was a tough opponent. It was a mismatch, and it was, right? Jake Paul never worried Anthony Joshua once. He never rung his bell. He never caused any damage. He never had him worried. He never did anything. It wasn't a fight. It was a display of how long can Jake Paul last? Can he run away long enough?
Following the blockbuster clash between Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua, reports claim both fighters earned roughly $92 million each, making it one of the most lucrative bouts in boxing history, streamed worldwide on Netflix. However, Joshua's massive payday reportedly took a significant hit due to taxation. As a UK resident competing in the United States, Joshua is subject to US federal taxes, as well as UK international tax obligations. Combined, these taxes could reportedly reduce his earnings by as much as $66 million, leaving his actual take-home pay far lower than the headline figure. Meanwhile, Jake Paul, as a US-based fighter, does not face the same dual tax burden, allowing him to retain a much larger share of his purse despite losing the fight. This contrast highlights how tax laws can dramatically impact international boxing earnings, and serves as a reminder that reported purses often differ greatly from what fighters ultimately receive.
Has to pay, as you see here, a whopping $43 million. $43 million of his $92 million purse. That means Anthony Joshua was left with $49 million. Right? Now, he also has to pay, I believe, 10% of that to his promoter, Matchroom CEO and promoter Eddie Hearn.
Dominic Engel delivered a brutally honest assessment of Jake Paul's broken jaw bout against Anthony Joshua, offering insight into both fighters' approaches. He explained that Paul's primary strategy was survival, focusing on avoiding prolonged exchanges rather than standing and trading punches. This movement-heavy approach made it harder for Joshua to trap him cleanly in corners. Engel noted that even when Paul absorbed a heavy right hand, he showed toughness by not panicking or backing down immediately. However, Engel emphasized that Joshua was not operating at full throttle, as there was little reason for him to completely empty the tank in an 8-round fight. Given Paul's experience level, Joshua could comfortably control the bout without excessive risk. Engel compared this dynamic to Tyson Fury's performance against Ngannou, pointing out that elite fighters often adjust their intensity based on their opponent. Sometimes boxers perform only to the level required. When Joshua did land clean shots, Paul clearly felt the impact, but overall he survived without being extreme danger, highlighting controlled pacing and defensive awareness.
Stand and fight. And AJ is not the best at closing people off, and it's hard chasing somebody down who don't want to engage. And then he tagged him every now and again. So
does it look bad on him? Because there's one right hook that he took was a serious shot. Obviously, he didn't flinch from it, but
not really, because you'll take into consideration there won't be there'll be no way. Well, Anthony Joshua thought, if he hits me, there's a possibility he's going to hurt me. And I felt a couple of shots early on in the fight. There's no way Jake Paul, at the level he's at, and who he's boxed and what he's done, that he's, and it's like AJ, like you say, he's got to have completely gone and be punch drunk for Jake Paul to beat him. After the last fight against the War, people think, oh, his jaw's gone there, he can't take a shot. Of course he can take a shot. And it's weighing up the opposition, and he weighed up the opposition, and he's not going to be training like he trained for Usyk or for the big fights. He won't do that because they can't get motivated enough to do it. They'll do enough to do the round. What was it, an 8-rounder? Yeah. So same again. So he did enough. He never looked in any trouble. He didn't look great, but Tyson Fury didn't look great against Ngannou, did he? But who did he box after Ngannou?
Usyk.
Exactly. But you would have never thought, looking at the performance against Ngannou with Tyson, you would never have thought that he put in the performance he did against Usyk.
Do you think it's more of a case of you kind of, no matter how good you are and how much you train, the opposition isn't great, and sometimes
you're going to box at the level of the opponent because the opponent makes you fight at that level.
It's quite fair.
So, but when AJ did do what he got to and manages to land.
He emphasized that simply surviving against a fighter of Anthony Joshua's caliber required immense courage and resilience, while also serving as a harsh reminder of the physical dangers inherent in boxing. The bout proved that hype and confidence alone cannot prepare anyone for true elite-level competition. Following the fight, emotions escalated when Jake Paul's mother shocked the boxing world with her furious reaction toward Anthony Joshua and promoter Eddie Hearn. She reportedly threatened both men, directing particular anger at Hearn, claiming she wanted to confront him for smiling while Jake struggled in the ring. She criticized Joshua and Hearn for not stopping the fight earlier, believing her son absorbed unnecessary punishment. Her emotional outburst highlighted a mother's instinct to protect her child and underscored growing concerns about fighter safety. While many fans and analysts viewed her reaction as extreme, others felt it was understandable given the brutal nature of the fight and the real risk Jake faced against Joshua's power.
Eddie Hearn, for instance. Yeah.
Why? Why Eddie Hearn?
Because I don't like his smug face.
You don't like his smug face?
No.
Morning,
Literally
I
thinks he's
swear
better
I said
than everybody
Eddie
in
Hearn
the world.
shit-eating grin. I said the exact same. Bro,
Jake's over there, struggling, and he's sitting over there smiling like the cat who swallowed the canary. Guess what? Did he fucking get in the ring?
Do you think he was happy with what happened to Jake?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh my God.
Now, this is coming from a mother, too, guys. So I just want y'all to understand. This is a mom. But at the end of the day, it's his job to laugh. Until I was laughing at Jake Paul. I can't even lie. I'm not a big Jake Paul fan. But, part of the process. We got to report on this. But Mama Paul, hella man.
Yeah, and that's sickening to me. It's sick. I don't like it. Even Anthony Joshua had some class and, apologized to me.
Did he really?
Yeah. He worked his way through the crowd and came up to me and said, Mom, it's just boxing. This is just fun.
After the fight, attention quickly shifted to Logan Paul, who was seen confronting and attempting to intimidate Anthony Joshua outside the ring. At the same time, footage showed Jake Paul in a hospital, clearly in pain and recovering from the brutal knockout that left his jaw fractured. The stark contrast between Logan's confident, aggressive demeanor and Jake's vulnerable condition underscored the harsh realities of facing an elite heavyweight. Fans and analysts reacted strongly to the tense scenes, noting that while Logan's behavior grabbed headlines, The real focus remained on Jake's injuries and the severe physical toll the fight had taken on him.
I say AJ fighting Logan Paul would be more of a mismatch than Jake Paul. You know what I mean? Because at least Jake Paul has taken boxing or has trained with real boxing trainers and real boxers. Whereas Logan Paul, you know, he did that exhibition with Floyd, and Floyd's a little guy. Not saying a little guy can't thump, because Floyd really gave him some two pieces with no size, right? But at the same time, you take his friend, Floyd's friend, Anthony Joshua, and get hit by him and see what happens. The same thing. Probably worse, because I think Logan, you know, he's a little taller than Jake. And because he's a little taller than Jake, he may think he's a little stronger than Jake. Which, I don't know which one's true or not. I don't think it makes a difference. But because he may feel that way, he may want to go in there and try to bang it out with AJ. And if that happens, it's going to be a lot quicker. See, that 6 rounds it took AJ to finally catch Jake. It took that way because Jake was on that bicycle, moving, being elusive, trying to come in and then come out. He tried to do a very poor man's Alexander Usyk, right? And it didn't work for him. Logan ain't gonna do that. Logan's gonna come in throwing punches and bunches like he did with Floyd, trying to get him in there and, you know, do all this stuff. And what's gonna happen as soon as AJ lines him up, sets his punch, he's gonna hit Jake, and he's gonna break Jake down. He may break his jaw or a face or orbital bone or something, nose. Something is going to be broken when it...
Chris Algieri and Paulie Malignaggi delivered a blunt and unfiltered breakdown of Jake Paul's fight against Anthony Joshua, emphasizing how punishing the bout proved to be for Paul. They pointed out that the contest ended with serious consequences, including a jaw reportedly broken in 2 places and the loss of teeth, highlighting the extreme physical toll of facing a world-class heavyweight. Both analysts explained that Joshua's timing, power, and accuracy left Paul with very little space to move or recover, exposing clear gaps in his defense. Algieri and Malignaggi stressed that the matchup was a harsh reminder of the risks involved when stepping into the ring against elite-level opposition without comparable experience. Their analysis painted a vivid picture of the punishment Paul endured and offered a cautionary lesson for anyone considering similarly dangerous, high-risk boxing matchups.
Ngannou, like, yeah, he's got balls. Ngannou's got balls, man. He went out there and he tried to fight, tried to win. Jake Paul didn't try to win at any point during the fight. He was just trying to survive. I think that's actually ultimately going to hurt him with boxing fans.
Yeah, what do you think, Paulie? I mean, you talked about the in-and-out kind of style, kind of hits and runs. And you said that, A, it runs out your legs. He was exhausted a couple rounds into the fight. And B, it only saved him for so long.
He doesn't have the boxing skills to box on the move anyway. Once I saw the big ring, I knew he was going to run for his life. When you're that much of a novice, which obviously it's not even an insult to him, it's just lack of experience, but when you're that much of a novice, you either know how to run for your life or fight all out. You don't have that in between yet. You haven't developed enough of that in between boxing acumen to really pull that off. And so what ends up happening? You're either going to fight your ass off and you'll last a minute. Chris, you're being generous. Round 2, he would have got knocked down round 1 if he would have fought. But at least he would have fought. He would have got the respect of the people and more importantly, the boxing community instead of these clowns that follow him and are still defending him. Now what happens is you didn't get any respect as a fighter. You didn't get any respect as a fighter because you didn't try to fight at all. If he would have, I was watching that through 2-3 rounds. I'm thinking to myself, this guy would do this for 8 rounds if he can. If he can do this for 8 rounds, absolutely not fight at all, absolutely not engage a single time in 8 rounds, he will actually do this. And he'll do it shamelessly. And that's the problem. That's the problem. The shamelessness of his approach to the fight. You're gonna be a fighter, then don't make an ass out of the whole sport, out of the whole business, and out of yourself first and foremost. Because in the end, what happens? You got his jaw broke anyway. So what ends up happening? What's the worst that's gonna happen? You're gonna get hurt. You're gonna get knocked out. You got hurt and you got knocked out anyway. But you just prolong the inevitable, and you got no respect out of it now. Because nobody's respecting that kind of performance. Nobody's respecting a performance where you would totally content to steal money from everyone by running for your life for 8 rounds. And if you could have not engaged a single time in 8 rounds, that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to pull that off.
That's all for today's video. Stay tuned for more.